Welcome to Demystify Magic with Molly and Madison.
I'm Molly, a former skeptic turned full-time energy healer and teacher.
And I'm Madison, a born and raised witch running my family's crystal shop.
And we're here to explore all things woo through the lens of both science and spirituality so that you can find the moments of magic in your everyday life and create an intentional spiritual practice.
So if that's what you're into, find a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's demystify some magic.
Howdy doody, friends.
Howdy doody.
We have a surprise for you that we wanted to slip in the front of this episode because we are about to hit our 2-year birthday on the pod. Woo!
We're entering the terrible twos. What do you think it's going to be like?
Tantrums, tarot, and tariffs, apparently.
The tariff was the only word I could think of, so I'm glad you at least got one witchy word in there. All right, we're starting on a high note here.
High note. Anyways, we're not here to ramble. We're here to tell you about a very cool giveaway that we are going to be running between now and June 15th. So in our show notes, you are going to see a cute little link to a form. And in that form, you are going to upload your screenshot of your review. This could be a review from Spotify, Apple, wherever you are listening to this. Go ahead and upload that screenshot. Let us know your word of the year, and you're going to be entered to win a giveaway. Madison, tell our people what they're going to win.
You could win a witchy little goodie box put together by me with a custom spell candle hand-tailored to your word of the year with a crystal and our Magic Moments journal.
Yay! We're going to be picking it out together, and I'm so excited. We're going to have one winner. This is open internationally, and if you're like, well, what are the odds that I'm going to win? Let's just say everyone who enters gets a little treat magic.
Yes, straight to your email inbox. And if you have entered one of our giveaways before, you can enter again. You can just go find your screenshot, or if you wanted to, you could leave us a review on another platform. We wouldn't be mad about that. But if you've entered in the past, don't feel like you can't send it to us again.
Yes. No purchase necessary. We'll handle all the shipping costs because we just love you. And we want to say thank you so much for taking this fun little journey with us and looking forward to many, many more years of Demystify Magic.
So click that link in the show notes and send us your screenshot.
And enjoy this episode. Bye.
Howdy doody, friends.
Howdy doody, friends.
Can you tell I'm excited?
Yes. Why are you so excited?
So I'll give you guys the context. Last night, we realized that our Element series was over and that we had no fucking clue what we were going to talk about this week. And we asked you guys what you wanted to hear from us. And so many of you so lovingly ask us questions that we don't know the answer to because we don't have the lived experience. And we brought in the big guns today. Mm-hmm. We have my very best friend, my partner in business and also shenanigans. We have my mom, Christy Howard, on the podcast today. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Mom.
Hello. Everybody say hi Mother.
I feel like you're my surrogate mom. I mean, I have a mom, but I feel like you're my mom in Florida.
You know, I'm happy to be the mom in Florida, for sure.
That goes for everyone listening.
Absolutely. I'll mother everybody.
Just
Christy is mother.
Hop in, everyone. So my mom, sorry to everyone listening who calls yourselves our biggest fan. No one rides hard for this podcast like Christy Howard rides hard for this podcast.
True.
So you must know what your first question is going to be, Mom.
I wasn't sure if I got to do a magic moment or not.
Hell yeah.
I have so many, but my biggest magic moment this week is that the 4 abandoned 2-week-old kittens that I took into my home to mother 4 weeks ago have been weaned. They have been weaned.
Aww.
They are no longer being bottle fed in the middle of the night. And I'm really happy about it.
God bless America.
Seriously, because there's a reason why typically 55-year-old women can't have children. It's because we need our sleep. And we can't be woken in the middle of the night to feed anything, much less 4 screaming kittens. So they're weaned.
But they're really cute.
They are so adorable. They are lapping milk out of a bowl and nom, nom, nom right into the dry food. It's great. Life is much better for me now.
I'm so happy for you.
I feel like this is a perfect embodiment of your personality. It's like we just learned a lot about you in 30 seconds.
In 30 seconds.
And I'm like, yep, that tracks.
My mom is known as the person you call if there's a creature of any kind that you find in a perilous situation.
The original Coven of Critters Crone.
Yes.
I like that. I'm going to write that down.
Put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah, let's make you a t-shirt, Jersey style. Christy, I'm curious. I would love for you to kick us off with, what did your spiritual awakening look like? Like, what was that journey? How did that lead you to starting the Healing Hedgewitch? Give me all the deets.
Whoa, that is a big question.
I know. That's why I started with it.
But aren't y'all going to tell your magic moments?
No, it's all about you.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow. That's a lot of pressure. I'm glad it was very magical. Okay, so my journey, that is a loaded question because it's been a long one. Back to the 55 years. I've had a lot of time, a lot of that life experience you're looking for. So it really started, I think, when Madison was 3 years old. And I had, at the time with her father, we had 3 businesses.
What?
I had turned 30 years old. A lot of threes there, right? And that's your Saturn return, right? Like right around that time. And I meant to actually look up the exact date of my Saturn return. I just know it's in that ballpark. And it definitely, this tracks. So we had a lot going on. And I basically had a little bit of a moment, a little snap moment where I sought some mental health help. I didn't even know that's what it was, but we had gone on a vacation. And have you ever done that thing where you put everything off to like, I'll worry about that when I get back from vacation? So I did that. Yeah, I did that for like months leading up to this big vacation. And then we got back and I had to face all of it. And I was sitting at my desk and I was like frozen. I couldn't move. And in my brain, I was like, I'm paralyzed. Oh my gosh, what did I get in Jamaica? Like, this is not good. And the paramedics came and they were like, oh, you're having a panic attack. And I was like, what? So they gave me a paper bag. I breathed and I was better. They sent me to the doctor. The doctor gave me some meds that didn't treat me well. And whenever Madison talks about not being able to take birth control because of what it just kind of does to her system, that's how I felt about the antidepressants. And it works great for a lot of people. For me, it didn't do the trick. And it, quite frankly, made things worse. So I was in this moment of really things were bad. And it was really a spiritual journey that kind of pulled me out of it, as I knew I couldn't be on medication, but I knew I had to feel better. So I just started. This was several years later. There's a lot of dark water there in between. But when we moved to Florida, actually, to be closer to my mom, it was just the best fit for me. I needed to be near my mom. Sometimes you just need you need that.
Relatable.
And so, right. So I moved to Florida to be close to her. And Madison was by then 5 years old. And I was like, okay, I've got to kind of figure my way out of this. What am I going to do? So I tried all the things. I did meditation, sound healing way back. This was, a lot of EFT tapping before it was cool. I met so many interesting people in this kind of seeking behavior. I've always been a bit of a seeker of knowledge and things. But anyway, as I went through all of it, each of these things helped. And it was really the sound healing was the number one thing for me. And I can remember I had an app on my phone that was the solfeggio frequencies, and I would just listen to them at night going to sleep. And I don't think anything did as much for me as that did. And as I kind of did more and more and more, when I hear Madison sometimes on the podcast say things about growing up and things that were witchy, and I'm thinking, really? Was I that witchy? And I think to me, it was just such an ingrained thing along the way that it didn't feel particularly witchy. Another topic, another day, is my inability to use the word witch sometimes, which is funny for someone with the store Healing Hedgewitch. But then I thought back and I was like, well, when she was 2.5 or 3 and I wanted to get her away from the pacifier, my go-to strategy was to tie all the pacifiers to balloons back in the day when you thought it was okay to let them go in the sky, and told her we were giving them to the aliens. So maybe I was really a lot witchier than I thought.
I don't remember
just
that.
hadn't come to the surface.
That's hysterical.
My mom gave them to the Easter Bunny, like at the mall. I'm like, as a kid, she was like, yeah, you give your pacifiers to the Easter Bunny and then they bring you an Easter basket. I'm like, that makes sense. And as an adult, I'm like, you handed a stranger in a bunny costume a slobbery piece of plastic.
I don't know which is worse, the trauma that you inflicted on the Easter Bunny or the trauma the balloons inflicted on the earth.
Well, in hindsight, I wonder why I said aliens. And I think it really was that I didn't want to vilify the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus or anybody else. And I guess I was witchy enough to not want to say I was sending them to the angels in heaven. So I went with aliens.
I'm sending your pacifier to God. Your pacifiers.
Who's going to take this slobbery piece of plastic
your pacifiers
away?
have gone to meet their maker.
And she had so many. There was like 10 balloons.
An offering.
I'd love if we could just cut to a news clip from Winston-Salem, North Carolina, of them being like, multiple pacifiers found floating through the air today. And now to the weather. Steve, take it away.
I mean, I was unwell. I was stressed.
We were mid-nervous breakdown. It's okay.
Yeah, so it's the best I could do. I did thankfully hold one back because that didn't work.
You had a backup supply. So then how did that spiritual journey then lead you to opening the Healing Hedgewitch? Because I don't know if a lot of people listening know, but you also have a corporate job that you've worked in for, 25 years now?
20 years.
20 years. Sorry,
Yeah.
don't want to add more time than to your...
So I think that, and actually it just lined up. I heard something the other day. There's a certain planetary lineup of things that happen when you're at certain points along the way. I'm due to have another one at like 65.
Woohoo.
And it was like 46. And at whatever it was, I'll have to maybe look it up. Probably won't. But it was at that time was when I was working in my corporate job, just very unfulfilled. I'm a creator and a builder. I'm not really good at maintenance. So that business was very exciting when we were building it in the early days. And it was like, I can't really walk away. But once you get a business to a certain size and you've delegated everything that you can't do daily, it's just not fulfilling. And frankly, it just, when I was building it, actively working very hard, I was great. But then once we were kind of in that space of just steady growth and doing our thing, I just wasn't as interested. I think that's when I kind of started opening my eyes to what is fulfillment. Like, I think that's the first time I thought maybe I wasn't really fulfilled. The things that drove me were Madison, like providing for Madison was like the number one driver. Well, by this time she was, oh gosh, that was probably 2016, 2017. So she had just graduated high school.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, that was high school 2016 and going to college. And I think we all have the little empty nest feeling. Nowadays, people ask me all the time, how do you do so many things? And I'm like, well, I don't have kids. So that's one thing. Like, that's a big time suck to have kids. And it's wonderful, but you don't even realize that that's where a lot of your time is going. And then once they can drive and do other things, it's just different. So I started feeling unfulfilled, that driver wasn't there. Her college was now paid for. Like, these things were okay. So kind of what keeps you going? And that's when I thought, well, I do a lot of coaching here at my job because everybody wants to talk about all of the things going on in their brains. So I went for life coach certification. And while that was fun and I learned a lot and it's really served me well, the idea of being a coach didn't appeal to me at all. But the skill set that's there, I really wanted everybody to have. Like, I was really caught up in that. Like, I'm not going to just coach one-on-one. That's not going to be fulfilling either because it just doesn't make sense for me the way I work. And so that was kind of in my brain a little bit, that I wanted a way for mindset coaching on the whole to kind of, how do you get that in front of more people? Because what I've found is people that are into that kind of work or into mindset work or into self-improvement of any kind, they know about it. But oftentimes the people who need it the most don't have any idea what's going on out there. Mm-hmm. I think there's a million coaches out there. Surely everybody has one, but really, no, they don't. So I'm just kind of muddling through, feeling pretty unfulfilled. COVID happened. COVID shut down. That was a pivotal moment for me too, because the world slowed down. It came to a stop. My corporate job is in water and wastewater, so we're considered essential. So we still kept on. In fact, crazy thing about that business is no matter how much the world is burning, we tend to be okay. So it's a very unsexy industry, but it's very stable. But I had all this time. So now I had just this new time. And the first thing I did was start walking my dog every day at the park. We would go to Howard Park in Tarpon Springs and walk the causeway. And meditation never worked for me. I had always tried, but I was doing the classic sit still and be quiet kind of meditation, which is not for me. Now I know I have the words for it, that I'm an active meditator. I have to be doing something. And so
we all learned in that time that Mom and I both have ADHD.
Yes. Oh, yes. I did find out I have ADHD. And so that helped a lot too, just kind of understanding how my brain works and that kind of thing. But walking River, one of my Aussies, we were just on the causeway and it just came into my brain that open a retail store, the name of it, the Healing Hedgewitch came in, the logo idea was in my brain. It just was like a shot of lightning bolt into my head. It was the weirdest thing. And I was like, that is the dumbest idea in the world. Like at the time, I thought it was an idea that I just came up with. Like, where did that come from? That's so stupid. Who would do retail? Retail is dumb. Retail is dead. Haven't you heard? It's like brick and mortars, no more. Like that's where my brain was, because you've kind of believed the hype that's out there or whatever. And so I'm walking, keep saying, that's so dumb. I drove down Tarpon Avenue in Tarpon Springs, and was a for lease sign by someone I know, had their company name in the window. They were renting out this storefront space. Couldn't shake the idea, so I made an appointment to go and see it. I was like, well, whatever, I'll just go see the space. I go see the space. Next thing you know, I've got a lease and I'm doing it. And it was just so weird. And I really didn't know where it came from other than it was just there. And when we opened the store on the day in November, this woman came in, and she was like one of the very first people who walked in the door. And she said, when did you open? And I said, 10 minutes ago, like literally
right
ago.
now.
And she said, no, I mean, like, she thought I meant that day, like that I had just opened at 10. And she said, no, I mean, like, when did the store open first? And I said, 10 minutes ago, like we just opened our doors. And she was like, oh my goodness, I am just here out of town to support of my friend that I work with, whose dad is here and all this kind of stuff. And she's walking around, she's acting different compared to everybody else. In my space, I was just excited to be open or whatever. But it was just odd, her behavior. And she finally just came up to me and said, do you mind if I share something with you? Like, can you receive a message? And I'm thinking, yes, I can always receive a message. Like, don't have to ask twice. I want the message. So she sat down and she said, Archangel Michael is here, and he wants you to know that he's the one that gave you the name of the store, and he's the one who told you to open the store. And I'll start crying just talking about it. And he said he's really proud of you for what you've done. That gets me every time. But because it's so true. And in that moment, the amount of validation that gave me was huge. I mean, it was just, I couldn't have asked for anything more, because the whole time I'm just doubting myself. I'm like, what kind of crazy person am I that I have a whole job like that's very demanding? I don't even want anybody to know I've done this, because I don't want them to have this perception that I'm not all in there, because while I'm not in the truest sense all in there, it's kind of like if I hadn't done something else, I would have been zero in. You know what I mean? Like it was like without this, I wasn't going to be there at all. So if you want me at all in this business, I have to do this outlet kind of thing. And so that moment really kind of blew my mind open a little bit. You know, Tarpon Springs has a shrine to St. Michael, and Michael is kind of known in the area. Like it's just very important. It's a Greek Orthodox community. There's a lot kind of going on there. So I didn't even know that relationship was there, but that kicked off this relationship with Archangel Michael that has just continued to just make me more aware of my intuition, leaning into it more, understanding that a lot of times it is just channeled information, and that it's not from your own brain, and just the idea that all ideas are from the ether somewhere, and they do come in to your head. And when people have the same idea, it's because you are pulling from the same collective, and that's just kind of the way the energy works. So the last 5 years obviously have been into like an overdrive of spiritual, just this like a snowball really, that I just continue to lean into, and everything I do is based on kind of how I'm guided by something bigger than myself.
Mm-hmm. I've heard you tell that story. I was there. I lived that story, and still I just love watching you talk about it. And I think that like I really wanted you to tell that here, because I think it's so vital to who we are and what we do, the how we got here. Like it is such a divinely guided thing.
It is. And it's hard because, I think that, you can't just say something once and everybody's heard. You have to say it so many times for everybody to really know. And then they still don't know. But it's not something that I just, hey, my name is Christy, and this is how I came up with the store. I mean, I'm just not going to do that, but I do think it's an important piece of it. And even the store and what it stands for and why it is and why the chalkboard outside the front door says, how do you want to feel today? It's that my mission is to make sure everybody's aware that you do get to choose in some fashion how you want to feel today. Even if it's something terrible is happening, we've had a lot of loss this past year. And even in the face of things like that, you can choose what part of it you want to experience, right? So,
and what your perspective is.
What your perspective is, exactly. So that for me is just something I wanted to, if nothing else, just introduce the idea. Because when you do take the minute to stop and think, I want to feel happy today, you will feel some little tiny bit happier.
Yeah.
I love that.
So moving on a little bit, we get so many questions about parenting, which I think is so funny because all we hear is if like people with kids, quote unquote, are the best parents in that they have a lot of opinions that they shouldn't have. Like, why are these childless people talking about parenting? And then everyone's like, do you have advice for witchy parents? So how did your practice impact your parenting of me? And what advice do you have for people who want to bring their practice into their kids' lives or like who have witchy kids?
Well, let's see. So when I think that when you were very small, I don't know that I was guided as like in my brain. I didn't know in my brain how much I was guided maybe by my spirituality. Like for sure, I felt strongly about organized religion. That's why we didn't participate. My background is in Southern Baptist from North Carolina. And I just knew a lot of people that were big in the church that were terrible in the streets. They just weren't great people. And so I just wasn't into it. And I've never, ever believed that you have to go somewhere to worship whatever you want to worship or pray or do whatever. I also have a lot of respect for anybody's choice to do that. I know that I didn't need that kind of structure. Some people do. Like, I am a seeker, so I will go find it. I will find the answers. Some people do need to go somewhere and have that dedicated time set aside. And I can see where that's important. So I do want to honor that for anybody who does that. But I never thought that I needed to do that for you to be a good kid or a responsible adult. I just always was very focused on, like around here, we still say, are you a good citizen? Like, I just want the kids to be good citizens and just be good friends and roommates and partners and business associates and everything else. So I was always just through that lens. How much was it spiritual? I don't know until you were a little bit older. I think that by the time you were 7 and I was kind of getting into more, I think that I tried to always be honest with you, Madison, like just in terms of how I was feeling or what I was doing. In hindsight though, oh gosh, all the time I'm like, I was not a good parent. Whenever like, I don't feel like I was a good parent. I don't know that anybody does.
I
like
think
you
every
always
parent feels that way.
Yeah. But like as I've been mothering these kittens for the last 4 weeks, I'm like, did I even give Madison this much care and attention that I'm giving these kittens? I don't know.
She turned out okay. I think we can all agree she turned out great. Yeah.
I'm like, did I dote on her food needs or did I like make her warm up her own dinner? Like sometimes
I was warming up my own dinner, but
Yeah.
Now she's so responsible for herself.
Right?
Like perspective. How do you want to feel,
Absolutely.
Christy?
How do you want to feel?
I want to feel like a good parent who definitely set her up to be a self-sufficient adult.
Yeah, you nailed it.
Yeah, and I think the older I get, the more I look at your parenting and feel really grateful for it. And what I really, because I also get a lot of questions about like having a witchy childhood, and I would agree with you that it wasn't overtly witchy. And that is what I think was so great about it, is that you were never telling me like, oh, we're doing witchcraft, because I don't think that was really what you had the words for. But you had an altar when I was growing up.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that we didn't talk about it. It was just that you talked about it in a way that really made it feel normal for me, that I grew up just really thinking that kind of anything was normal spiritually. Like you couldn't really surprise me. And I was really open to all ways of being, because like I fully had friends in high school that I went to their churches. If that was like what they had to do, if we were having a sleepover and their family went to church on Sunday, I just went and I was like, okay, here I am. you know? And then I came home and if I was going through something, you would pull me a card, you know, and we would talk about it.
So I think that that's really kind of back to how I even live my practice now. I don't have any kind of an intense practice. And I was just talking about this with some people last week. It's like everything I do is just, it's like it's a part of me, like fascia. It's just it's a part of my organ of my body. And so when I move through the world, I don't have to try really hard for it to be a part of who I am. And I think that's how sometimes I get the reputation for moving through feelings too quickly. And by the reputation, I mean with Madison, because I don't sit with things very long because I do move through them quickly, only because it's just part of my movement. It's just how I move forward in the world. And so I don't need a lot of ritual for that. I'll do little things, the stirring my coffee and, you know, all of those little things that you sprinkle through the day. And that's why I look forward to your book, Molly. I can't wait to read that. But
you got a signed copy with your name on it,
I can't
Christy.
wait. I'm very excited. And those are the kinds of things that I do. And I think that's when I was parenting Madison. I think that was part of how it was. I didn't read a lot of books about parenting. I didn't do a lot of things. I just did what felt right. And I did what felt natural. And I've always been very focused on self-improvement in the sense of how I want to show up in the world and how I want to be. And so I think that, like, of course I had my moments where I've snapped and yelled or done whatever, but for the most part, I tried to honor her as a human being and respect who she is. And it was not easy parenting Madison all of the time because
Really? Me?
What stories do you have? Any weird, like, psychic things Madison did as a kid? Weird moments that you're like, oh, that was my daughter's a witch.
You have permission to embarrass me. You already talked about the aliens and the pacifiers. We've broken the seal.
I think this is the question everyone's waiting for us to ask, to be honest.
Well, she did go through a period of life that was challenging. It was a challenging time. And she was
no
a
idea
very
what you're
deep
talking
feeler. She was a very deep feeler and
still is
a very deep feeler. And so, and like, I guess you call it your scene phase or emo kid or whatever, but it was
it was never just a phase, clearly, as I sit here in front of you with my green hair covered in tattoos.
Yeah, we've had many talks about the tattoos. And, you know, even tattoos are a great example, right? I do not have any tattoos, not a single one. I reserve the right one day to just, who knows? But right now I have none. And it's not that I am against them. I honor everybody's choice to have them. I'm really not against them. However, what I was always against, that I let Madison make decisions before she had a fully formed brain. Like, I wanted her to not make a decision that was something permanent in her body before she was old enough to make those choices. So anyway, now that she's old enough and she's paying her own way and she's fully formed brain, she does whatever she wants. And I love her all the same and no harm. I don't, like, sometimes do I look at her and think that's my little baby and she's got stuff on her body? Sometimes I do. Because when I look at her, I see a 5-year-old, you know, with the little bangs and stuff. So I have that moment, but I don't have that moment for long. It's just whenever I have to show my age a little bit and talk about, there's that movie, Father of the Bride, where they're sitting at the table and she says to Steve Martin that she's getting married. And when he's looking at her, she's a 5-year-old saying, and we're going to get married, because that's how he saw it. And that's how I see her sometimes. So I think that as a parent, that's a challenge, but I did honor her decisions. It's just that you can wait until you've got a fully formed brain, that kind of thing.
I think I've desensitized you at this point.
When she told me that there were ghosts visiting her and that there was a man that at the top of the stairs, I had some hard time believing that, even with all of my spiritual being. But in hindsight, I'm like, oh God, we really did have spirits in the house. Like, she really did go to that cemetery that was behind her house and drag somebody back in with her.
Yeah, for context, this was when I was like 16. I wasn't like 7 years old wandering around in the cemetery. This was like when I was in high school. We lived in a house that our backyard, literally like on the other side of a fence, was a cemetery. That's what's fun, and I was excited to have you on the podcast, because from my perspective, when I talk about seeing ghosts in our house when I was in high school, I always say the only person who believed me was my mom.
And I did believe you. I didn't believe you. You know, like I believed that you believed. And I wasn't going to call you crazy or not until I had proof to the contrary.
Yeah. And so I think that you handled that really well, because I never ever would have thought that you were concerned, you know, or like doubted that.
I just thought, okay, drama queen.
Story of my life.
Christy, what's your big three? I have to know.
I'm an Aquarius sun, Gemini moon, Leo rising.
And it shows.
Yeah. Yeah. I was going to say there's Leo in there somewhere.
Yep.
Uh-huh. Okay. I'm excited to ask you about this because you've been talking a lot, like both you and I have talked a lot about it, and also you've talked a little bit about it publicly, this like leaning into the crone archetype. You've talked about your crone era. Can I ask how aging and even like menopause has impacted your practice?
I think the biggest way is that I absolutely am 100% out of fucks to give about what anybody thinks about what I do. And I wish I had that 20 years
Love
ago.
that about you.
And I am jealous a little bit that you young ladies have a lot of that now, that I sometimes wonder, like, wow, where would I have gone? What would I have done if I had been in that brain space when I was in my late 20s, early 30s? Like, what would that have looked like?
We got that from our mothers.
Right?
Yes.
And I just, I think when I think back to it, I'm like, yeah, like it's fascinating to me how much we are caught up in what people think and what do they, it kind of goes back to full circle of the, how do you want to feel today? And like I always say, like everything you do is for how you think it will make you feel. And so when I was doing certain things in my 20s and early 30s, like it was not for me. It was to please someone else or to make them happy, as if that's possible. Like I think I'm controlling what they think of me by the things I'm doing. And in hindsight now, I just, as at 50, almost 55, 54, well, I don't even know anymore. I guess I'm 54.
I guess.
You just have this different perspective that I spend a lot of time in my own brain. Like, is it from a place of privilege that I can have that? Because I did those things early on that set a certain stage that now I have a certain amount of personal capital that I can get away with it. Like those are the kinds of things that keep my brain going sometimes, is the thinking through, now I can say certain things, but it's because of the buildup to now, where like a good example is you mentioned the corporate life or whatever. I'll never forget the very first time I just said, I'm going to just take this crystal with me to this meeting. And it was because we were having a 2-day meeting, maybe 3-day meeting. It was like an annual event, a planning event. And it was not going great. Like, it's a male dominated industry. I'm the only female in the room almost all the time. It's getting better. The more employees we have, the bigger our percentage of females in the company. But for the longest time, I was the only one, except for maybe my assistant and the receptionist. And I just brought this big hunk of lapis in and put it on my desk, we were in a conference room on my personal little table in the semicircle. And I said, y'all, yesterday was a total shit show. So I've brought in something today. This is a stone that is good for communication. Yes. And I need for everybody to think about how you're communicating today. And every time you see this big rock, I want you to think about it, how you're communicating with each other. And that's where I just kind of opened the door, to the point that fast forward a few years, and I'll say business partner at that business, even though I'm a very small minority owner and he's the majority, I'm still in charge in my brain. My favorite psychic, I had a session with her, and she said, there's this guy coming through. There's this guy coming through, and he has a real problem with Mountain Dew. And I just need for you to tell him to stop drinking the Mountain Dew. He is going to have a real problem from this. And I said, oh my God, I know exactly who that is. So I thought about it for a couple of days. Because we've been in business for 20 years, we have our moments. So some days I'm like, drink that Mountain Dew. You drink it up, buddy. But I said, no, I don't want him to drink the Mountain Dew. I don't want him to have health problems. So I said, listen, this is going to sound crazy, but my psychic said you need to stop drinking the Mountain Dew. Something really bad's going to happen. She doesn't know you. I've never talked about you. She doesn't know you have a Mountain Dew problem. But she said, before she could help me with my psychic session, you need to tell him to stop drinking Mountain Dew. So I'm just going to lay that out there. You can do whatever you want, but I'm going to feel good about myself because I've shared this with you. And you know, he never again drank another drop of Mountain Dew. Never. Still hasn't.
I haven't heard that story. I didn't know that.
Wow.
That's been 8 years probably.
Wow.
So I did that, and just more and more, I'll let it all hang out now.
Yeah. Do you have any because sometimes we get questions about menopause, which neither Madison nor I can relate to yet. So
One day.
This is advice for us, I guess, too, one day. But do you have any advice on how you can use your practice to make the side effects of menopause more manageable?
So I haven't really gotten into that other than, the herbal medicine for sure.
Mhm.
I'm not on hormone replacement therapy, which a lot of people do. And I have friends who are, and I sometimes toy with the idea, but I do lean into the apothecary side of witchcraft just for teas and things of that nature that are helpful. There's a
Mhm.
certain blend that's good for that. I can't remember what else in it, but there's just ways that you can deal with it. I've found that it's really your brain. I mean, as much as it does physically manifest, like for
Yeah.
example, I don't have the energy I used to have. Just
Mm.
saying to yourself, you don't have the energy you used to have, makes sense. You're older now. Like, let's not beat ourselves up. Let's give ourselves some space. Let's have some kindness
Mm.
towards ourselves. That's really what I spend more time with than I do any of the physical treatment kind of thing. I do really view it as a natural part of life. Like
Yeah.
it is natural. And so this is supposed to be your slow down time.
Mm.
I will say, I don't have even the brain space. I don't think my brain works quite as well as it used to in terms of being able to switch. And it's not just ADHD, it's all of it, but that's part of it. So, okay, don't task your brain so hard with so much task switching, things like that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that in itself is spiritual in nature, like accepting
Mm-hmm.
and not just making peace, but like finding love for the natural phases of life, saying like that is being
Yeah.
one with the earth, like it's our
Yeah.
natural life cycle, in the same way we honor the natural life cycle of all things, to say like, this is a different part of my life and I can love this just as much.
Yeah, I think a lot of times there's a resistance to the news cycle, and that's where the symptoms get exacerbated. Like I'm thinking about, when we're in winter and or January, when everyone's trying to do New Year's resolutions and they fall off, 6 weeks
Right.
later, it's because that's the slowdown period of
Mhm.
our year.
Right.
And so I think just embracing and embodying and having compassion for the fact that no, you have cycles and you can't just go, 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 go for your entire life. You do need to slow down and kind of rest more. Just accepting that, I feel is a spiritual practice in and of itself.
And I will say that I have never worked with deities before. That's not been a part of my spiritual journey until recently. And I do think it's because of menopause. And I do think that's why I've
Mm.
been called to work with Lilith and Hecate.
Say more.
It's been about that. It's been about this phase of my life. And I think really just being called to strong feminine deities who can help support me in maintaining my strength. Like I've had to do some hard things lately that meet with all the city people about the permits for the potionary, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Being in a room with 8 bureaucratic men is not where I want to be. That is not fun. But I did. I've sat with Hecate. I talked to Lilith. I've got some. There's some stuff that Madison carries at Spellcrafter that's from Kobe, who makes. I have some Lilith oil and
Mm-hmm.
like Hecate's Crossroads powder, and so I've just not anything crazy or overt, but it's just kind of channeling that energy to give me the support that I
Mm-hmm.
need. And I had never done that before, but it really has been helpful. Again, with my own, just where my own brain is, and I think though it's just not expecting myself to be everything I've been
Mm-hmm.
the way I was.
Yeah.
I love that you'll start a sentence with like, yeah, I don't know that I really do like the witchiest thing. And then you'll drop the witchiest shit ever. Like, oh, but as an afterthought, like I'm also working with Lilith and Hecate.
See, that's what I think. Okay, I'm gonna not to blow smoke up your ass, Chrissy, but I think this is why Madison turned out to be such a cool and open individual is because you have these extremely witchy things, but they're all framed as yeah, this is just something I wanted to do, so I did it. And if someone else wants to do something different, then they just do it. And it's this open perspective that all all practices are valid that I feel like Madison really picked up on. And I feel like the Healing Hedgewitch, that's like part of the reason why people feel so seen and so safe there and at Spellcrafter, because it's like, yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Whether you've ever tried this before or you're brand new to it, like you can't do it wrong. Like, let me help you. Let me show you the way. And I feel like that's like, I don't know. I feel like that is such like the reason why I feel like I am so connected to both of you, is because like, even though I wasn't raised witchy at all, my mom would not consider herself a witch. She's very skeptical. She also had that. Like, and I think it's cool that we were raised very differently in terms of our practice, but still came to this just like open, welcoming, like space. I just think that's such a cool, like such a powerful thing to impart on the next generation that you have.
And what I see so much of about you that I think was so good for me growing up in a spiritual household is that your ego is not in your practice at all. It is so not just blow smoke up your ass, except for I love to talk about how wonderful and amazing you are. You are so guided by your own intuition, and it is not for anybody else. And I actually I'm proud of you for saying on the podcast that you're working with Lilith and Hecate, because I've loved watching that journey like very slowly grow, because it's been almost a year since you bought that Lilith oil, and it's kind of, I know it's just kind of sat there, and it's been a journey in and of itself, like deciding what that means and what that looks like. And I think that the fact that it was no aspect of your practice was ever performative, it was all solely for you, is a huge part of why my spiritual upbringing was so good for me, is I was able to find my own practice. I was always encouraged to not only to like do things differently and like explore things, but it was the same way that like, I think you would have reacted to me the same way as if I turned out exactly like you and had these like really in-depth spiritual practices and I was really into sound healing, as if I said that I was going to start going to church and I was a Christian, you know, like it just didn't matter. Like both of those things held equal weight to you. It wasn't like I was the cool kid if I came with you and you were mad at me if I didn't, you know, it was just everything was laid out on the table as an option, and it didn't really matter.
And I appreciate all of those things for sure that you guys have said, because I think the most important thing for me, and this especially comes into play at the store, a lot of people have a metaphysical store because they need a place to do readings. I've found that to be true, that frequently, not all, but a lot, it's like they're a reader first and then they have a place to do it and they sell things. And I think that when you are coming from that specific direction, sometimes you can have this sense like you need to know everything, or you need to have an answer for everything, or that like your way is the way, or that you're right. Because I mean, you know, like that, I can see how if I were a reader, it would be important to me that if I am a psychic and I tell you something, that I'm right? Like I don't have that. I don't have a need. I will tell everybody I have no idea what that is or how that is or why that is. Let's find out. I'm also someone who will try everything. I will try everything. And that's back to kind of just to touch on the menopause thing. Biohacking is the trick to keep it. So one of the first things I did the minute I started having night sweats was I bought a bed air conditioner. So it like cools the bed.
I remember Madison telling me about this.
The best investment ever. I'm 8 years strong. So at that rate, I'm, you know, it's like, is it worth $150 a year to sleep? Yes, it is. I mean, because it makes all the difference in the world. So I think just a lot of people won't buy something like that because what if it doesn't work? And I've always just had this mentality of like, if it doesn't work, I'll try something else. And I'm not afraid to try. I don't have any sunk cost theory or anything else going on where I'll just do something, see if it works. And I always will say, and it comes from like I can't remember where, but the obstacles are the path. And so whatever doesn't work is kind of like guiding me to what does work. And that is like the number one thing that I believe in my bones, that you don't have to get it right the first time. You can just try.
And listen, if Chili Pad wants to sponsor this podcast, I can confirm I've moved on to 8 Sleep. It's even better. Oh, sorry. If 8 Sleep wants to sponsor this podcast, can confirm I have house sat for you and slept in your bed, and that shit is cold. I've spent the nights searching how to turn that fucking thing off because I've slept in your room in a robe with a blanket underneath me
I need one.
to get away from the freezing bed air conditioner. Can confirm.
It's so good. It is the best thing ever.
They should give you a discount code, Christy, because I'm like about to purchase one right now. As someone who sleeps wedged between a human hotbox and 2 dogs, I'm like, please give me a bed air conditioner.
That's actually how it started. My husband is half Portuguese and he's a hot sleeper. So before I had menopause, it was for him. And the 2 sides have 2 different controllers and everything. And then I was like, oh my God, this is the best ever. But it's just, I think it's just being
Even
willing
better.
to try things. And then in the store, that's how it is there too, right? It's like everything isn't going to work for everybody.
Yeah.
You'll find your thing. I had to try a lot of things to find those things that work, and just being willing to explore. And that is why we try to make the store very tactile and very experiential. It's very much like I'm not there for you to have to spend a lot of money to find your thing. I want to help you find your thing, and then you can invest in items. But let's just kind of see what your thing is first and try all the different things. But that's also why I have a hard time leading workshops and things like that. My job, I'm not there to be the expert in anything. I'm there to create the space for you to explore. And there's just this kind of feeling that comes along with workshops that are sharing knowledge that that it's not like a specific thing that I'm an expert in. I don't feel comfortable, and it holds us back from offering certain things. But that's why we do offer our shop for people to use, people that we believe in. Like you've had Reiki there, Molly, to just use our space, because I do want to provide that to the community, but I don't want it to be at the hands of my cobbled together ideas that aren't really somewhere where I've not invested my whole education and everything in that topic. It just doesn't feel clean. And so we try to keep it, where we're kind of
your
there.
strength is bringing community together. And
Yeah.
I think part of that strength is being able to be a space where people like me, where I was like, I want to do a Reiki training in person. And you were like, come on down. And magically there was a bunch of people there. like that's your strength.
Magically. I think Molly's excellent marketing also gets the people.
But no, it's like 90% of those people came from you and the store.
Yeah, I guess that, yeah.
Yeah.
And they want, and that's the thing, that's where I sometimes feel I don't know what the word is, but I feel a responsibility to try to figure that out, to offer more, because people really do want it. And I want to provide it. It's just, I don't want to provide it.
You attract the perfect people and build that community. I feel like it's happened so organically, but it's probably because you're just following that inspiration. You're following that guidance, and and I love that you said that you're kind of following that guidance from a higher power somewhere outside of you. I feel like that forces us out of the ego. It forces us to see that I'm connected to something bigger. And so it's not about me. It's not about me. Right. It's not about, buying stuff in my store. It's about, the right people will come in and play with all the things and find their thing. And then you'll be taken care of in that process. And I feel like that's always been an inspiration to me watching you as a business owner.
Thank you. It's fun. We're having a good time too.
Yeah.
I've never had so much fun in my whole life. And I think that for me, that's the menopausal years. I think that if I could give any gift to anyone, it's to focus on that. Focus on, let yourself have some fun. Because if you're my age, you grew up in a time where play wasn't prioritized very much. And things were just a little bit different. I think how we were kind of driven on, I remember going to college. My degree is in history and secondary education. I did not want to teach ever a day in my life, but it was make a choice, pick a path, just very honed in on, you have to be, and it has to be something. You have to be a doctor or a lawyer or an Indian chief or a teacher. Those are the things. Those are the names. Nothing else.
Can I give a really obscure callback?
Always.
Madison, do you remember on the podcast live on air when I was like, I swear to God, you were a history major? And that was a weird, all of a sudden it makes sense. I literally the channel was there where I was like, no, I swear to you, Madison is a history major. I called it a Mandela effect on air. And you were like, no, I've never. And I was like, no, I can feel it. I feel that you were a history major and I've never let that go. It all of a sudden makes sense now. Because Christy, I did not know that about you.
I'm so glad we could close
Very
that
few people
loop.
do.
That is wild.
That is wild. And, so this feels important to say because we got also a couple of questions that I actually was going to say, Molly, we should do in like a future episode about building community and how to build a witchy community. And I think that the reason that you and I, Mom, have been able to do that so beautifully is because you are not afraid to be wrong, and because you have taught me to not be afraid to be wrong, that you are enthusiastic about learning from other people. Because I think that that is such a thing in the spiritual community in general. I don't think it's even just like shop owners and people who do readings, like feeling the pressure to know everything. I think it's everyone feels the pressure to be an expert. And when you let that go and you're excited to meet someone who knows something, knows more about something than you do, that is where that true connection and that community building can happen. Because if you're closed off and thinking like, oh no, this person's an expert, they're going to see right through me and see that I'm a big dummy and I don't know anything, you can't build community that way. And that really just clicked for me as you were talking. I was like, oh, that's how we've been able to attract these people, is because we meet people who are deeply knowledgeable in things, and we're excited to hear from them and excited to get to know them and learn from them.
Yeah, I think that's a big, think having a collaborative mindset is the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
We've always had that with the store. I never wanted it to be kind of closed off in any way where we did it all, like I wanted it to be very open. I think that comes from, for sure, there's a certain amount of luxury that comes from having your day job and not getting rid of it and then starting a business. So you're just not as reliant. What's interesting about that though, is that creates an abundant mindset that then creates abundance, right? Mm-hmm. Because I was in that space of like, I need this space to exist. The store needs to exist. I've been told to do it, and it needs to exist. And I want it to be all about the customer experience. That's been very important to us. I want everyone to have such an experience. And that's why we've invested in certain infrastructure, like where it isn't just a place to buy things. And we do have a place to sit. And if anybody ever complains that somebody sat there for 2 hours and didn't buy anything, we will have a talking to. Like, we don't care. That's what they want to do. They're welcome to do that because they feel safe in the space. I'm more than happy for them to be there. I think it's easy though, if you're trying to get your store going or another business, and you've got to make the bills work, mm-hmm. and you kind of are starting in that space that's already from a scarce mindset, then you make decisions from that scarce place, and then you create that scarcity. Yeah. And so, from day one, it was, we're going to offer for readers to be here. We do not take any part of their money that they make, because I don't want to make that a revenue generation that I'm making money off of their skills. I want to just create the space. They're providing a service to the people that come in our shop, like that we have readers. And workshops, the same thing. Just because I technically can make jewelry or I can do this or that, I'm not going to only do those workshops because from that place of scarcity, when there's somebody who does a really good job of that, I want them to come in and do that, and all that's done is created it's just this different wave of energy in the space. And I think people can feel it, which makes them want to come back. And so it's interesting to me to kind of pay attention, like, mm-hmm. because I'm a business nerd, like I pay attention to all those kinds of things. And it's interesting that the less worried I am, the less bothered I am, the less there is to be bothered about. And I think that's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. The privilege of abundance is you can lean more into discernment.
Yes.
Right. Like I always tell my Reiki training students, like, literally don't quit your day job.
Don't. Right.
Like, until it gets to the point where the day job is hindering your ability to grow the business. Don't quit your day job. Keep it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Let it be your safety net.
It's really just about that. Then that lets that have just more of a space to blossom, because it doesn't have that stress of how am I going to make it work? You just have to kind of get, and it's unfair that you have to like get there to get there. But I just think it's so important to the overall energy and the situation.
Totally. Yeah. Mom, I love you so much.
I love you.
I am so proud to be your kid. I'm really excited that our listeners get to have a little piece of you and all of your wisdom. How can everybody hear more from you?
The best way is thehealinghedgewitch.com. Join our mailing list. We're trying to get a little more active with some online events and things. That's something that we've been asked for a lot from your podcast listeners.
Hi, we love you.
Yes, I had several in our most recent, we did like a little 10-day event. We've got some other ones coming up that I'm super excited about. So join that mailing list and you'll get to hear about them. I'm trying to find a way to create that experience that we have in the store, but from all of our online shoppers as well. And our locals. I mean, it was kind of a mix of both, about half and half, that locals and then online, but we did it all online. And it was great.
Awesome.
So come talk to me there. And anytime, hello at the Healing Hedgewitch. That's me.
We'll put all that in the show notes too so that people can find it easily.
Yes. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time, Mom. I love you so much.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. I couldn't wait to be on.
This has
Thanks,
been
Christy.
probably one of our
Thank
most
you.
requested episodes, so I'm glad that we are giving it to the people. All right.
Yes, give the people what they want.
Did we do it?
We did it.
Yay.
Do you want to say bye with us, Christy?
I do.
Okay. 1, 2, 3.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Demystify Magic with Molly and Madison. If you want to learn more about us, you can find all our links in the show notes.
We'd love to know what you think of today's episode, so drop us a review or give us a shout out on social media. And don't forget to let us know your magical moment of the week. Okay, love you. Bye.